Good evening. I'm Kevin Walker with the Overland Park Chamber of Commerce. I'll serve as the moderator tonight. This is the forum for Ward 3, Overland Park City Council. I want to thank everybody for coming today. This is put on by the Johnson County Public Policy Council, which is a collaborative effort of the 10 chambers of commerce that operate in Johnson County. Collectively, we represent more than 5,000 businesses. In addition to hosting forums like this, we also conduct other voter education efforts, including publishing a wealth of candidate information on our council's website, which is www.votejoco.com, and certainly encourage everyone to take a look at that and learn more about the candidates. Tonight, as I said, we're having our forum for Ward 3, which includes our candidates Richard Borlaza and Tom Carignan. Prior to starting, we did draw numbers to see who was going to go first, and Richard drew number 1, so we'll ultimately be starting with him. Before we get going, just let me go over the format. Each candidate will have a minute and a half for their opening statement, and then after that's concluded, we'll rotate into our Q&A, alternating back and forth throughout the duration. And then at the end, we will wrap up with a minute and a half for each candidate to give a closing statement. So with that, we're going to get rolling here, and I am going to turn it over to Richard Borlaza to offer his opening comments. Richard, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good evening. First, I'd like to thank the Overland Park Chamber of Commerce for hosting this candidate forum. I'd like to thank the Overland Park residents who are here watching us tonight, and for those that will be watching on the stream. A little bit about myself. Again, my name is Richard Borlaza. I grew up in Johnson County. I went to Trailridge Middle School and graduated from Shawnee Mission Northwest. After high school, I pursued a career in IT, which led me to my current position as the IT Director and Technology Teacher for Hyman Brand Hebrew Academy. It's so crazy to think that I just started my 13th year at the school, and the kindergartners from when I first started are seniors and will be graduating this year. And 13 years later, I'm still happy to be serving that community. I have lived in Overland Park for almost a decade now, and it's definitely a city where I envision raising a family someday. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Tom, we'll transition to you and your opening comments.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you to the Johnson County Public Policy Council for having and hosting this forum this afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone in the audience. I'm Tom Carignan, running for re-election to Overland Park City Council Ward 3. Proudly, we are sitting in Ward 3 right now, so this was always nice. My journey to City Council really started in high school. I was involved in different clubs and organizations. Moving on to college, I was involved in different student organizations. And when I was the president of my fraternity, I got more involved in civic engagement and local governance. And then now as a professional, I've been involved in multiple organizations for my entire career. And I actually currently sit on the United Way of Greater Kansas City's Board of Trustees, in addition to the Overland Park City Council. My first term on the council has been a bit of a blur that coincided with the start of a global pandemic. I certainly hope that doesn't happen again. But I am extremely proud of the work that the city has done, that our council has done, that I have done to reemerge from that pandemic stronger, able to give raises to our city staff, and continued all of our important services for our residents. And again, thank you for the invitation. I look forward to the rest of the conversation.
Great. We are going to transition to our Q&A, and following our order, Tom, you'll answer this one first. Do you believe the city of Overland Park is headed in the right direction?
In the short answer, yes. Overland Park has really been blessed for the last 63 years as a city that has grown both in residents and grown in jobs, really building a community based on strong neighborhoods and a strong corporate presence. I think the value that generates for our residents is second to none in the state. I believe that our lowest in the state city mill levy allows the average Overland Park resident to live in Overland Park for just about $2 a day. So for less than a cup of coffee a day, a resident pays the Overland Park city, you get best-in-class fire, best-in-class police, and really world-class amenities that all of us enjoy in the city. And so my plan is to continue the work ensuring and adding to that value in my next term.
And Richard, same question for you. Do you believe the city of Overland Park is headed in the right direction?
I do. I do believe our city is headed in the right direction. We have great schools, we invest in infrastructure and public safety. Our city is nationally known for being one of the greatest cities to live in, and in the last Overland Park Satisfaction Survey, we rank high on just about every metric. Several years ago, when my rent was raised, I was forced to move. What really drew me back to Overland Park and the place where I live now was finding something that I could afford. Luckily, I was able to find something in my price range, which was close to trails and a park. I don't have kids of my own yet, but it's nice when my nephews come over and we're walking distance from a park. And we also have other great amenities like Deanna Rose, the Arboretum, and our public pools. These are just a few of the things that our residents enjoy and why people want to move to Overland Park.
Well, thank you both, and we'll go to our second question. Richard, you'll start with this one. As a candidate, what are your top 3 policy issues?
Thank you. My top 3 policy issues focus on housing, infrastructure, and the environment. As someone who volunteered for an organization that advocated for affordable housing and renter protections, I'm committed to making sure that Overland Park is a place where young professionals, families, and our elderly can all afford to call home. With regards to infrastructure, I know our residents aren't happy with chip seal, as evidenced by their approval to increase sales tax. We need to continue what we can to decrease our dependency on chip seal, and I think we're doing that by replacing asphalt with concrete. Overland Park has an aging infrastructure, and we need to take that into consideration as we look forward into the future. As we continue to grow and develop, we also need to think about our environment and our approach to fighting climate change. I'm glad we have representation in Climate Action KC and its goal of achieving net zero emissions by 2050. I think we need to do more to create walkable and bikeable neighborhoods. I also think we need to continue our work on a climate action plan to see where our carbon footprint is and work towards sustainable development.
And Tom, as a candidate, what are your top 3 policy issues?
So my top 3 policy issues are very important in my opinion, and the first one is strong neighborhoods and public safety. Overland Park, as I mentioned earlier, was really built on strong neighborhoods, and public safety is something that we must continue to invest in. Recently I saw some information about a neighboring city where if you call 911, you're on hold for approximately 2 minutes. In Overland Park, you're not on hold, and phone calls are answered in less than 5 seconds, with someone dispatched to your home within 1 to 2 minutes. Strong neighborhoods and public safety are key, and those are my first priority. Second is infrastructure. As a 60-year-old plus city, we've aged, and as most folks know, we've aged from the north to the south. And so as we drive our streets, our bridges, and in our neighborhoods, we can see that age difference. And so with the recent addition of the resident approval of the 3/4 cent or 3/8 cent sales tax and other funding, I fully intend to support reinvestment in our roads, bridges, and other infrastructure so that for the next 60 years, our residents receive that same value. And the last is simply value. As I mentioned a minute ago about our property tax levy, we have to continue to work to make sure that happens. We have to continue to work to maintain that balance of job creation, of residentials, neighborhoods, and sales tax generation, so that we can fund those priorities well into the future.
We will move on to our next question, and you've already touched on this a little bit, Tom. You're going to answer first. What are your views on the services and the value the city's residents receive for the local tax dollars that they pay?
As I mentioned before, for the average homeowner, for less than $2 a day that you pay to Overland Park, our residents do receive quality public safety, best-in-class resources. We've already mentioned our parks and different trails and amenities. Those things don't happen by accident. And the governing body, with city staff, with residents, and the business community have all worked together for the past 60+ years to make that happen and to deliver that value. So I'm absolutely committed to continue those relationships, building upon them to make sure our residents receive the most for their tax dollar.
Richard, same question for you. What are your views on the services and value the city's residents receive for the tax dollars they pay?
I believe our citizens receive great value for their local tax dollars. Our city's investment in essential services such as infrastructure and public safety ensure a high quality of life for all of our residents. Also, as someone who works for a school, it's a proud moment for me when our students take field trips to places like Deanna Rose and the Arboretum. With that being said, recently our residents voted to approve a sales tax and the city council approved a new budget. I've heard from several residents about this. I feel like our current city council missed an opportunity to address the problem of storm debris disposal. Our residents are expected to bring their storm debris to a drop-off location, but why can't we have curbside pickup when our neighboring cities can? I'm thinking of our older residents, our seniors here in our ward. Can you imagine a large branch falling on your yard and having to think of how you're going to bring that to a drop-off location in a Prius? Some of our residents lost power, and how are they supposed to break down these large branches with no power? This isn't something that happens every year, but do we need to create an emergency fund to handle this issue? We need to do better.
We'll go to our next question. Richard, this will start with you. What role, if any, do you believe the city should play in economic development to bring jobs and capital investment to the community?
Thank you. I think continuing to do what makes Overland Park a safe and welcoming city is what will bring economic development and jobs to our city. If Overland Park is good for people, it is good for business. Businesses are looking at housing prices, our schools, and our infrastructure. We need to figure out ways to make housing more affordable so that we can bring in the diverse talent that businesses are looking for. We do take pride in knowing that no matter where you are in Overland Park, you're only a few minutes away from the highway, but I think we still have work to do to improve our infrastructure, especially in northern Overland Park. I know that TIFs can be an effective tool to bring development to our city, but we're talking about our residents' tax dollars here, so we really need to evaluate each proposal to make sure that it's equitable and that it solves an issue with regards to affordable housing, infrastructure, or climate change.
Tom, same question for you. What role, if any, do you believe the city should play in economic development to bring jobs and capital investment to the community?
Part of what has made Overland Park so successful over the last several decades is its partnership between the public sector, the private sector, and our residents. The balance of neighborhoods, the balance of commercial development, the balance of other investments is really what has made our city successful. I do believe in the power of public-private partnerships when applicable, and they should each be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. In the past, when more greenfield development was available, we saw certain types of projects come to Overland Park, and certain types of projects had that public-private partnership and investment. Looking in the future, as land becomes less available and more infill or redevelopment projects become prioritized, anytime we look at the proposition of a public-private partnership, we need to evaluate those to make sure that any investment by the city and any investment by residents really furthers the goals of the city and our residents, always ensuring that those investments are made for the best interests of the city and our residents. Those are long-term investments, and they have long-term results. And so by working together, I think we can find opportunities that make sense and benefit our community.
Tom, this next question will start with you. As the city considers future development and redevelopment, describe your views on how the city should best manage this growth.
Well, right now we're going through our comprehensive plan update. The plan's about 40 years old, and so we're in the community engagement and input gathering process right now. Once we get the input from our residents and get the results of that comprehensive plan, we'll kind of have an idea or a map or a guide of future development in our city. And so just like similar to that last question, working together with our residents and with our business community, we can, I think, work together to make sure that that future development is beneficial to all of us in the city.
And Richard, as the city considers future development and redevelopment projects, describe your views on how the city should best manage the growth.
Thank you. I believe the city should prioritize smart and sustainable growth. What I mean by this is we need to really evaluate each proposal to make sure it's in line with our vision. I think what may work for Ward 3 may not necessarily work for Ward 6. I think we need to continue to promote mixed-use development that incorporates residential, commercial, and recreational spaces, create walkable and bikeable neighborhoods, and invest in public transportation. I think Vision Metcalf is a perfect example of this, minus the public transportation part, which we can obviously do better about. Additionally, we need to ensure that growth benefits all residents by implementing affordable housing initiatives and fostering inclusive economic opportunities. Environmental considerations should also be central, with a focus on renewable energy, green spaces, and responsible water management.
Our next question will start with you, Richard. What are the greatest challenges the city faces over the next 10 years, and how would you address them?
One of the biggest challenges we have in Overland Park is the issue of affordable housing. Having experienced my own struggle with finding safe, affordable housing on a single income, there is no question why housing is my #1 issue. I've spoken to countless residents while knocking on doors, and the consensus seems to be their concern for rising rent and skyrocketing property taxes, which are hitting our residents hard. In Johnson County, there are currently 5 cities that offer a property tax rebate that allows residents within a certain income threshold to receive up to a 100% rebate on their city property taxes, and Overland Park isn't one of them. When we're talking about our most vulnerable people, those on a fixed income, our seniors, I'm not sure why we don't already have a program like this in place. Another challenge we have is in regards to infrastructure. As we continue to grow as a city, population growth can lead to congestion. Additionally, one of the things that we need to consider is emerging technologies, such as autonomous vehicles and implementing renewable energy sources, which will require a substantial overhaul of existing systems. To address these challenges, we must prioritize long-term planning, invest in sustainable and adaptable infrastructure, promote public-private partnerships, and leverage innovative technologies such as AI and IoT for smarter and more efficient infrastructure management. These are just a couple of forward-thinking ideas that we need on City Council.
Tom, same question to you. What are the greatest challenges the city faces over the next 10 years, and how would you address them?
Sure. I think we are at a point in our evolution as a city where we're changing. If you look at the beginning of our city, we were a absolute suburb of Kansas City, where the family was here, maybe someone drove into Kansas City and came back at the end of the day. Fast forward 60 years, 60 plus years, we're a full-fledged city, and we're changing and growing every day. I think that one of the first things we have to do is maintain that high value for our residents. I think if we can work together, I would absolutely want to keep the tax burden low for everyone, to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to enjoy their life here in Overland Park. We touched a little bit about housing, and I think Richard's right. If you're, in my opinion, the housing affordability or housing access attainability question impacts everyone. It's not just the new homeowner. If you're someone in a $300,000 or $400,000 home and you want to get that extra bedroom or that extra office, your chances are you're jumping up to $600,000 or $700,000, or not maybe $450,000 or $500,000. So we have to look at ways to understand that better, work with our realtors, work with our developers, the city and residents, because we're all in this together. So that's one of the key issues that I will continue to be involved and work on. And I think the most important way to tackle any of these issues is to collaborate, to talk to each other, and to come to good solutions together. And I believe in my first year I've exhibited that. We'll continue to do that in the future.
Well, believe it or not, we're moving into the last question. You both have been succinct and concise with your answers, so we're moving along quickly. This question, last one, we'll start with Tom. What specific proposals do you have to support the goal of providing accessible housing throughout the city?
Sure. Before I was elected back in 2019, I took part in some sessions to learn more about small-scale development and understand how different communities have worked on projects such as those. A couple years later, in 2021, I attended several sessions on, one in particular was big impact of small scale development, really talking about how to use land more efficiently, how to diversify the housing mix, and regardless of what the situation, or excuse me, what the solution is, we have to work together with our residents to make sure that if we do look at changes to zoning regulations, or we do look at any other types of infrastructure improvements, that we're doing it together, because we're not going to solve this problem without making it happen as a community.
Richard, same question to you. What specific proposals do you have to support the goal of providing accessible housing throughout the city?
The issue of accessible and affordable housing is one that is especially personal to me. I used to rent an apartment, and after raising my rent over $200, I was forced to move. Luckily, this move brought me back to Overland Park, and I'm really happy to live in a great neighborhood with several amenities near me and still live close to work, which is also in Overland Park. For young professionals like myself and others who are looking to be first-time home buyers, the struggle is real. For one, inventory is low, and new listings are gone in an instant, $30,000 over market value. Everywhere I look, I see luxury apartments being built. We need to also be looking into different housing styles, such as condos, multiplexes, and townhomes, to give people variety and a chance at home ownership. And if we're going to consider building more luxury apartments, we may need to look at implementing inclusionary zoning policies that require developers to have a certain percentage of affordable units in new housing projects. This is how we make it affordable for young professionals, families, and our elderly to live in Overland Park.
Well, I want to thank you both for sharing your thoughts on these important issues that we've covered this evening. I want to turn to our closing comments, and just as a reminder, you both have a minute and a half for your closing thoughts, and we will start with Richard.
Thank you. Again, I'd like to thank the Overland Park Chamber of Commerce for hosting us tonight. It's been a pleasure to share my priorities for Overland Park with you. Working in IT for a nonprofit, I know what it's like to work within a very restrictive budget and have to think outside of the box. I also have extensive experience in troubleshooting to find solutions to complex issues. As a volunteer who consistently engages with our community, I've listened to your concerns. For example, I've heard from one of our residents who shared their concern about storm debris and telling me how his emails have gone unanswered. This tells me that there's room for improvement and that our concerns for our residents aren't being heard. I want to let our residents know that I'm someone who's approachable, someone you could pick up the phone and call, and someone who will respond to your emails and take your concerns seriously. I'm a proud Overland Park resident, and I hope to serve as your next City Council representative from Ward 3. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you both again for participating in our forum and for your willingness to serve the people of Overland Park. I want to remind the audience that recording of today's forum, along with our other election-related information, will be available on our website, Vote Joco. And I realize I forgot, sorry about that, I'm jumping ahead. Tom, sorry about that. How about your closing statement?
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. And for those that were waving in the back to remind you, I appreciate that as well. Thanks again to the Public Policy Council and to the Overland Park Chamber and Vote Joco for having me here this afternoon. Ward 3 voters have an important choice to make. Voting for Tom Carignan is choosing a stronger Overland Park, stronger neighborhoods that continues that strong foundation of safe neighborhoods, fully supporting our public safety and first responders. It's also an Overland Park that collaborates with residents for the future and invests in our roads, bridges, and other infrastructure. And an Overland Park that delivers the highest value to our residents with world-class parks, amenities, and services while minimizing the tax burden on our residents. So again, I thank everyone, especially my wife and my daughter who are at the back there, for this time to talk and to connect, and ask for each of your support and vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, and now I will thank both of you, and I'm the guy with the script and I messed it up. But again, thank you for being here this evening and your willingness to serve the people of Overland Park. As I said, recording will be on our voter education website, www.votejoco.com. And lastly, just want to remind everyone that advance voting in person begins on Saturday, October 28th, and Election Day is Tuesday, November 7th.